thinking. It's thinking. Okay.
60% of people experience some form of after-death communication when a loved one passes. Hi, I'm Vondie Lozano. Welcome to Soul Guide, a show about past lives, life between lives, and this life. And today we're talking about after-death communication. And I was kind of smiling when I was saying it in the intro. Some of it is because my assistant and I are still getting the hang of StreamYard, but also because it's good news that there is some form of after-death communication. It's a way that our loved ones comfort us and communicate with us and let us know that they're still with us. So we're going to just chat for a couple of minutes while we're waiting for people to come on. But I just wanted to let you know in April, we're talking about grief. So next week, we'll be talking about surviving grief. Last week, we were talking about what if heaven had visiting hours. And then we're going to be switching from Wednesdays to Fridays in May. So more people will be able to join us. Oh, and our special announcement, we're giving away this month special gift bags. Soul Guide is hosted by Life Between Lives Hypnosis, which is me. And for those who comment and participate and ask questions, we'll be doing a little drawing at the end, and my assistant will be picking some random winners, and then we will send you your own special bag. So hopefully you will comment and ask questions and share, because this is really your show. I'm the one talking, but really it's for you to find out how we can help and support you through what you're going through. So I wanted to check and see, well, actually, let me switch over to my slides. And hi, here we go. So episode 2. Some of the questions that we received are, what is after-death communication? So ADC is what's commonly referred to, and I'll answer that in just a minute. What happens right after death, which we talk a lot about, especially in the Life Between Lives, because that's one of the things that we do is we ask people what happened, how did it feel to die, because you go from a past life to the time in between lives. How do loved ones communicate after death? In very creative ways, which we're going to talk about in a moment. And then what about hallucinations? Someone had Googled, what about hallucinations after bereavement? And actually, I would say, assuming someone's mental health is stable, that what we may think of as hallucinations can sometimes actually be signs from our loved ones. So those were some of the questions, but please post your questions so we can answer those as well. So starting out, what is after-death communication? So I first heard about this when I was reading a book by a therapist about the afterlife and after-death communication and how to connect with your loved ones when I was grieving. And that's where I first learned the words, after-death communication and ADC. And she said that 60% of people, and I've since seen 50%, but 60% to 50%, most of us experience some form of contact when a loved one passes. That's them reaching out to you, letting you know that they're near, offering comfort. It lets us know that the relationship doesn't end. They don't end. We don't end. Our love doesn't end. And my background is, as a marriage and family therapist for many years, is that our attachment doesn't end just because someone passes. Our love for them continues. And from this understanding, they continue, and we continue to be in contact with them. And they want to offer us comfort. One of the stories in the book said, and I can't remember the name of it. I've tried to find it. It's been a lot of years. If anybody knows of it, please let me know. But one of the stories she told is she asked someone, asked the loved one, how do you feel when she needs you, the person on earth? And they were like, of course I'm going to be there for her. So they come near to us when we need them to come near. So I realize the print is really small. You probably can't read this, but I can, and I know because I wrote what's there so I can remember. But some of the ways are signs. People often talk about butterflies or hummingbirds. With my mom, we had the sign of a peacock, which I can tell you a little bit more about in a minute. Also, we played this song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Cousin Iz, during her service. And so when I hear that song, I know it's my mom saying hi. And also, just a little disclaimer, these are just my stories, a lot of them, and personal sharing. So take what you like and leave the rest. This is not me attempting to prove the afterlife or anything like that. It's just my sharing my experiences and other experiences that I'm aware of as a way to help validate your experiences. Those things, those nudges, those touch ins from your loved one that you think, am I making this up just because I really miss them? Maybe not. Dreams and visits. So, dreams are usually emotional content that we're working through. I mean, unless it's like a past life memory or something. But dreams are usually whatever the day's issues are, and that's what we're processing. A visit in a dream feels really different. When my grandmother passed, it was right before I got married in 2010. um, I had a dream where she came to talk to me, and I said, Grandma, what do you do over there every day? Or what do you do? And she said, the same things I used to do on earth. So we were having a conversation. It wasn't like me having a dream about being with my grandma when I was young or something like that. So it feels different. It feels like a visit or a conversation more than like just processing information. That's my experience. I also think that time when we're awake, half asleep, for me, that's usually in the morning. That's a time that's really, we're kind of in that meditative, almost hypnosis state. And it's really easy for them to contact us then if we're open to it. At least that's my experience. And so after my dog died, and many of you know that's what brought me to all of this afterlife and life between lives. But I remember right after she died, maybe the day after or the next day, I I was in that half awake, half asleep, and I saw her on my chest, like standing on my chest, like if you guys know Snoopy, where he would kind of put his head down on Charlie Brown or look down. I saw her like on me, looking at me, like with her face, like right here. And and then she was like there. She gave me a little lick, kiss, and took off. And I remember thinking, did I just imagine that? But if I made something up, if I was going to make something up, it wouldn't be like a drive by. It would have been she comes, we hang out. So that was one of my what I would call visions. So I didn't have my eyes open and see her, but I was in that half awake, half asleep. But I wasn't dreaming either. I mean, I was waking up. So anyway, just my stories. If it resonates with you, great. If not, that's okay too. Um, in the book I was reading that talked about after death communication, they said they're able to touch with electricity easier than some other things. So I'll talk in a little bit about the phone. My mom used the phone a little bit after she passed to I guess communicate, basically give us some signs and other things I'll share in a minute. But I've heard people talk about lights. I haven't had that experience. Candles, but those are some of the ways that they can sometimes connect with us. You might hear your name. I don't know what it's called when you have this kind of communication before someone passes, but I've experienced this. I did that little bit of mediumship training, and he talked about people being clairsentient and clairvoyant, and clairvoyant is being able to see things. And I am a little bit clairaudient. I can hear things sometimes. And I don't, it's funny, I've not shared this publicly before. Because as a talk therapist, which is the other thing that I do, you don't talk about hearing voices. But I remember once when I was ill, that was part of my story. I had a health condition around age 30, an immune condition. And that's when I first started opening up. I was working with the holistic healer because Western medicine didn't know what to do. And that's when I first started getting some sense of all of this. But anyway, I remember hearing, I don't know if my dad is on today. They said they might be watching. I remember hearing my dad say Vondie, kind of a like stern voice. And I would also hear my roommate's voice and then some other voices as well. So sometimes we can connect in that kind of in between place, even before someone passes, but definitely after, if you hear them say your name or, honey, I'm here, or something like that. We can sometimes smell them, their perfume, or just the scent of what we associate with them. And then also, sometimes you just have a sense they're with you. I was looking through some of the things I collected after my dog passed and then my mom. And I have this little folder where I wrote down some of these things. And I wrote that the day we went to pick up my dog's ashes, I had a sense of her with me the whole day. And I kind of remember feeling like she was next to me in the footwell of my car as we were driving. My husband was driving, and feeling a sense of her down around my legs. So those little subtle things that we write off as, oh, it's just my longing. It could be something more. Okay, let me move to the next one. So, how does after death communication help with grief? First of all, it tells us the afterlife is real. They are still very much alive. Rich Martini, who wrote and did the short film about Life Between Lives hypnosis, Philip Side, he says oftentimes, gone, they're not gone, they're just not here. Well, sometimes they're actually even here, but they're just in a different way. People talk about it's like taking off a garment and putting on a new garment. That's what it's like to leave one life and go to the next. Or when we do the sessions, people often say, I just feel relieved, I feel free. So they're just in a different form, but they're still very much alive. Even the science says, matter doesn't cease to exist. So we do not cease to exist. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this topic is in our culture, grief is very much a taboo. We're really uncomfortable with it. In some other societies, people mourn in sackcloth and ashes. And I don't know if we do sackcloth and ashes anymore, but there's a period of grieving, and it's expected and respected, and it's understood. And in our culture, we just kind of ignore it and don't know what to say, and kind of think if we don't talk about it, it'll go away. Like if I don't talk about your grief, maybe you just won't feel bad. And instead of, we just need to talk about our grief. We need to tell our stories over and over. And that's some of what we'll talk about next week, is what helps us survive grief. But death is a taboo. And after death communication is even a bigger taboo. Just jumping ahead a little bit, as a marriage family therapist, when someone passed, after I started doing this work, I would usually ask, so I do them as two separate things, but I still sometimes, they kind of connect and overlap a little bit. So when someone has lost someone, especially if it's recent, I'll say, have you had any contact? Have there been any signs? Have you had any experience of them near you? And the majority of the time, people will say yes, and they're so relieved that someone's asked them so they can talk about it, because otherwise they just feel like they're crazy or they're making it up, when most of us experience some form of contact in some way or another. And then I just want to mention briefly David Kessler, the grief expert. Most of you are probably familiar with the stages of grief, the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Well, David Kessler worked with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who's the person who laid the foundation and did all that grief research. She was sort of the founder of this body of work. And she even allowed David Kessler, her family, actually, she's since passed on, to add an additional stage of meaning. But he wrote the book, Visions, Trips, and Crowded Rooms. I always get those out of order. Visions, Trips, and Crowded Rooms. And it's his work with hospice workers, healthcare workers, practitioners, healers who work with the dying. And there were these themes of people seeing people in their room. When my grandmother was near the end, she saw her husband, her love of her life, my grandpa, Dewey, in the room. And then she also saw her husband later in life, and she was a little concerned that, oh, what am I going to do here? So on the other side, there's no jealousy or anything like that. But it's really common, because as we become near the end, we become kind of more of that world than this world. People are kind of sort of on the cusp at the end there, and they go back and forth a little bit. And so it's common to see loved ones showing up who are there to comfort and help us and know that we're not alone as we cross over, or as animals, they say, cross the rainbow bridge. Trips, people will often, as they're preparing to leave, to pass, they'll start packing a suitcase and telling their loved ones they're going somewhere. This was again from David Kessler's research. And then also crowded rooms. they'll say, "Do you see everyone?" Like everyone they've ever loved will be in their room, or people from the other side, people who have passed on, there again to help transition them over. So just understanding this normalizes it so we don't think we're crazy or our loved one is going crazy before they pass, but also to know that this life is not all there is. Pets are souls too. When we were little, my sister asked our youth minister, do dogs go to heaven? And our youth minister said no. And she said, then I don't want to go either. And I'm with her. So I had someone in their session ask, what about dogs? It was someone who had lost dogs and was really connected to them as I was. And the message he received was, dogs are souls just like we are. Pets are souls. They're beings just like we are. So they live on as well. And in Michael Newton's work, when he asked people, he was told the pets, animals were in like a different part of the afterlife, but they could be with their owners if they chose to. So sometimes we hear different things from different people. What I heard was pets are souls too. And as I've shared before, and many of you know, losing my dog was the thing that sort of pushed me into being more open and I guess stepping into some of the gifts that had started to reveal themselves when I was younger, when I had that serious illness. And so I went to a medium. I did about 3 or 4 months of training with the medium because I was so interested and connecting with the afterlife was the only thing that lessened my grief. So there is a picture of my dog. I've included the picture that before, but this is one when she was a little older. So my dog opened the door to the afterlife. I knew someone who used to say, how'd they say? God came in through the dog door. So again, I had connections with her even before she died. I would sometimes hear her bark and it would wake me up, but she would be sound asleep. Like I would look over and she was sound asleep. And it wasn't those little barks they do when they're kind of asleep and barking. It was like she was dreaming about barking and I was hearing her. So her communication was happening even before she passed over. I haven't shared this one before, I don't think with anybody, but well, with my mediumship group, but after I lost her, I was really grieving. And so she would send me a lot of signs. And some of these are subtle. They're not going to sound like a big deal to you, but they were a big deal to me at the time. And hopefully the little signs that come from your loved ones will have more meaning for you and you'll be able to validate them. But anyway, I was listening to Pandora at the gym and I don't know what I was listening to, but I was listening to a song and then the song switched into Thank You for the Music by ABBA. But Pandora was playing something else. Like if you looked at my phone, a different song was playing. But I heard Thank You for the Music and I felt like she was thanking me for giving her a good life because I felt like I didn't do enough. That was one reason it was so hard for me when I lost her because I was very into her but there was some stuff that was a little off at the end that I didn't feel good about. So anyway, I heard Thank You for the Music and I just burst into tears and I felt like she was communicating with me. Right after I lost her, I heard her name, it was really uncommon at the time. I heard it like 3 times in one day. I think I was at the park. And I was like, okay, okay. And my mediumship teacher had said, be aware of little signs like that. And I just saw little white dogs everywhere. And maybe there was always little white dogs everywhere and I was just more aware. Or maybe she was sending little white dogs my way. And then one of my favorites, Sean, who was on with us last week, wrote or told us in my mediumship group when we were training. I talked to him last night to ask if it was okay to share this story. He said she just kept nudging his shin. So not her, but her spirit. He said we were doing our training and we were trying to do something, but it was quiet. We were all trying to do something in our little mediumship circle, our training group. And all of a sudden, Sean bursts out. He said he just couldn't hold it any longer. Vondie's dog is here again because she just would show up regularly. So it was kind of funny to have somebody else do that. And back to when I saw her on my chest like Snoopy, someone in one of the mediumship classes said, I see your dog on your chest like Snoopy. Like she described exactly what I had seen. And then this is one of the ones that wasn't related to my dog, but it came out of that time period and that training, which was my neighbor upstairs passed away suddenly. And I had to go tell the other upstairs neighbor. There was just two upstairs and us two apartments downstairs. And when I told her, she was distraught, but she said something about his music, that she would miss hearing his music. He was always playing his John Denver music. And she was from a different country. So she had a little bit of an accent, but she said the John Denver music. And so I used some of my mediumship training and did some meditating and other things to connect. And when I connect with him, his name was Greg, I heard the song "Don't Go Breaking My Heart." I'm like, why am I hearing that? And so those are the ways, it's like a charades game. They give us signs and symbols and we have to kind of figure it out. Or sometimes we have to figure it out. And so afterwards, I looked up "Don't Go Breaking My Heart" and I thought, well, why am I hearing that song? Isn't it by Captain and Tennille? I mean, I was thinking of all these 70s songs. And it was by Elton John. And so when I saw my other neighbor at the funeral, I said, I think I heard from Greg, only he said his music was Elton John. And she goes, oh, yeah, Elton John, Elton John. Yeah, not John Denver. It was Elton John. So they can connect with us. They have ways to let us know that they're still alive and to give us the messages to let us know that. So, what I really wanted to share, what this is all kind of building up to, was how the afterlife really helped me connect with my mom. And some of you know my mom was disabled. She had a really, really hard life. She was disabled as a child and wasn't supposed to sit up or walk or have kids or get married or anything. And she did all those things, but it was hard. She was in a wheelchair at the end of her life. She used a crutch most of her life, and she had dozens of surgeries, dozens and dozens. And so it gave us a way to talk about the afterlife. And so a couple of months before she passed, I had a dream, I would say a visit, but she wasn't gone yet, where I was in bed and she was laying kind of in the bed across from me. And I just felt this overwhelming love, that unconditional love that people experience when they cross over to the other side. It's hard to describe. It's sort of like the sunshine, only bigger and softer. And so I felt this overwhelming love. And I thought, I actually was worried that maybe she had passed and that was her kind of saying goodbye on the way out. So I called her the next day early and she said, no, I'm here. We talked about it. And she said, when I was little, she had me very, very young as a teenager, that she would kind of stare into my eyes or we'd stare into each other's eyes. And she said, that's what it felt like to her. So there was that contact. And then about a month before she passed, we had a conversation about death. And well, it kind of happened by accident as she told me she was having another surgery. And I said, Mom, you got to stop having these surgeries. One of these times you're not going to come back, because she just had so many things wrong with her. She was not stable and well in any way, but she needed and wanted the surgery. And so when I said, I'm worried one of these times you're not going to come back, I used to tease her and say, don't go to the light, Mom, in the surgeries, don't go to the light. But anyway, this time she said, I'm done. In fact, it still makes me sad. She said, I'm done, honey. She had just had such a hard life. This was as she was pushing herself from the bed to get into the wheelchair. And nothing was easy. She had had to learn how to walk 3 times in her life. And so I said, well, I'm going to miss you, Mom. And so we had a conversation and she said, because we've been talking about the afterlife, she said, I'll be around. We all came from a religious Christian background, but she was letting me know that she understood some of what I was thinking and learning about the afterlife. She said, I'll be around. And I said, well, we need a sign. I had read that in one of John Edwards' books. He and his mom had a sign before she crossed over. I said, we need a sign, Mom. And she said, well, can't I say just, hi, honey, it's Mom? And I said, no, we need a sign so I know it's you, like a peacock flies into my backyard or something. So a peacock didn't fly into my backyard, but we did get some peacock signs. So that was the conversation. It was around Mother's Day, about a month before she passed. So the night before she passed, or before she got ready to pass, I had a dream. I didn't know at the time that she was going to pass the next day or her heart would stop. But I had a dream that we had to take her off life support. And it was horrible. and I woke up and I called where she was staying at assisted living, and they said, oh, she had a doctor appointment today. It was like a Saturday or something. But anyway, I was like, okay, maybe it was a Friday. But I was trying to wait, and I finally found her in the hospital at about 3 o'clock. She had had the surgery that day and probably told my sister twice and forgot to tell me. Anyway, I said, Mom, I had a dream that we had to take you off life support. And she said, oh, you would never be in that position because I have a DNR, a do not resuscitate order. And I said, okay, but I was really distraught, and she was doing pretty okay from the surgery. And I said, I love you. And I was supposed to call her back that night, and there was some other stuff going on, and I didn't. But at least my last words were to her were, I love you. So I'm kind of coming to the important part, the after death communication part. I mean, it's all important, but I feel like I'm building up here. So anyway, so this was the first contact. Is that night I was asleep, and I woke up to see we had a phone next to the bed, but I always would turn the phone off at night, and the phone was flashing. So I woke up to see the phone flashing. The flashing didn't wake me up. It was over here. But I woke up. When I woke up, I saw the phone flashing, and it took me a minute to realize that means it's ringing. So I went in the other room so I wouldn't wake up my husband, and the other phone was flashing, and I picked it up, and it was my sister calling to say that my mom's heart had stopped in the hospital. So what had happened was they had resuscitated her, even though she had a do not resuscitate. But since my mom and I had just spoken the night before, I knew her wishes. So my sister and I talked. We told the hospital to wait. We drove down, and then we followed through with my mom's wishes. But to me, I was amazed that my volume on my phone was off, but someone, I would say my mom, woke me up so I could know that my sister was trying to reach me. So the next day we did what we needed to do, and it wasn't like in the movies where you unplug and they pass peacefully. It was a lot harder and longer than that. And I was the last one at the hospital. Well, actually, I had a friend come with me, but I stayed till about midnight because I didn't want her to pass alone. But my friend said sometimes they won't go while you're there. So we left, and I had my phone with the volume on next to me in the bed where I was staying at the Airbnb. And somehow she turned off my volume because I woke up, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5. And like I had missed 10 calls from the hospital from my sister because we said, call us if she gets close so we can be there when she goes. So my phone was on. I looked at it. There's nothing wrong with it. Just a whole bunch of missed calls. And it was right next to me. I would have heard it even if I was tired. So again, sometimes they can do things with electricity. And so that was one of the things that she did. My sister went to a movie the next week, and there was this big, beautiful peacock in the middle of the screen, like taking up the whole screen. And then I was like, well, when do I get my peacock? And I went to a grief group nearby here up in Ojai, actually. And I didn't end up going back because of some other reasons. But one of the first nights I was there, I heard someone say, the darndest thing. I was driving my truck, and this little family of peacocks, a mom and some babies, were crossing the road, and the mom stopped and looked at me. And I was like, there's my peacock. And then I can't remember where I heard it. It might have been in another grief group. Someone literally said a peacock flew in their backyard. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so then, of course, we've seen many since. But those were the main ones right after my mom passed. And my cousin, who was there with us too, also had his own peacock story. So the last thing I wanted to share about my mom was I did try to connect with her after she passed. I was doing some meditating, and I just said, Mom, where are you? And she gave me all kinds of messages, but this was the one that was the most clear. So we used to have horses as kids, and I saw these big green pastures is what we would have called them, big green pastures. And I heard, for thou art with me. It still makes me a little moved. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. And we grew up in the church, so it was the 23rd Psalms. But it wasn't until I went and looked it up that I saw the 23rd Psalm says, he maketh me lie down in green pastures. So she was letting me know she was somewhere beautiful, like green pastures. And I also just, when I was looking at my stuff this week, saw that we had the 23rd Psalms in her little handout for her service. So for me, connecting with the afterlife has provided much comfort in times of grief. And I hope that this understanding provides some for you as well. And then I wanted to show there's a picture of my mom. That was from when she passed. So I was going to look and see if we have any questions. Are there any questions or comments, Leticia? I'm not seeing anything. I'm not hearing from my assistant. I see private chat. No. So I think with that, and it doesn't look like, do we have any bag giveaways? Okay, let me look in private chat again. Okay. So I think for today, we're just going to post this live and we will save the bags for next time. But thank you for watching. If you do have any questions after, you're free to post them. Feel free to post questions. We will respond. I will respond. And and there's a bunch of other things I'm supposed to say before we go. So hold on. You can read more about this Love Never Ends, which is the blog post that we did this month on my website. Leticia will post the link in the comments. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, follow, comment to stay in touch with us. And next week, we will be talking about surviving grief. So I hope that was helpful. Let me close this. I hope that was helpful for you. We love you. Look forward to seeing you next time. Take good care.